Looking forward to that. And shortly after I get back, we will have our food-based holiday coming up, which is Purim, where we read the book of Esther and the story of the effort to destroy the Jewish people and its failure. And so we will be doing several things. We have there's a tradition of a Purim spiel, meaning a Purim play. That is to say, a play based on the Purim theme, but typically updated to all kinds of contemporary ways. This one is Sesame Street based, and there will be singing, and the title is Shin is for Shushan, Shushan being where the capital where the Purim story takes place. That will be on Monday, March 6th with the deli dinner starting at 6, and then the Purim spiel and the reading of the Megillah, the Book of Esther, and then we will end with the eating of Hamantaschen, which are triangular pastries filled with all kinds of different things. Some sweets. We're also starting to do savories because people are getting creative. And the word, several meanings, but one is Haman's hat. It looks like the three-corner hat that Haman wore. So it's those are wonderful, and we have our special Hamantaschen bakers at the temple who will be putting those together. So anyone's welcome to join us. Just register on the temple website for March 6th for our Purim Spiel, Megillah reading, and dinner.
And Rabbi Tom, if you could remind us of the website for people to go and register.
Okay. Yes. This. I wish it were easier, but it is temple -Etzchaim ETZCHAIM.org.
Awesome. That's great. And just to take a step back, Pastor, your congregation or your church's website, do you have that?
Yep, it is franklinumc.org. So Franklin, like United Methodist Church, UMC.
Great.
Thank you.
I don't think...
We're running a few minutes late tonight. We'll open up our biweekly meeting on the 2023 Open Space and Recreation Plan with the Franklin Conservation Commission. We're a little bit thin tonight, but here with Rika Lagerlander, Tyler Peslowski, and more may be arriving, but we'll get started in the meantime. Just before getting into the substance of tonight, just our kind of quick announcement that due to concerns regarding COVID-19 and just maintaining flexibility for folks, this meeting is available in a hybrid format, either in person or via Zoom. In an effort to ensure citizen engagement, folks are able to dial into the meeting or using the Zoom application. The meeting number is 845-0207-7907. You can either access that through the Zoom application, or you can call the phone number 929-205-6099. And again, the meeting number is 845-0207-7907. You're able to provide comments via Zoom, in person, whatever your preference is. They all count. And just kind of our ongoing public service announcement with the Open Space and Recreation Plan, to please participate. The more input we have, the better the plan will be. And you can participate by coming to one of these meetings and contributing. We also have our second public hearing coming up toward the end of April. And then the open space survey that is live and will continue to be live. How long do folks have?
End of April now.
End of April. So we've had several hundred responses, which is great. Would like to add to that. So to access the survey, you can go to franklinma.gov/conservation. And on the main page, there will be a link to the Open Space and Recreation Plan. Can't miss it. Click on that. It'll bring you to the landing page, and you can access the survey through that website, as well as all of our past presentation materials. So glad to see some folks on Zoom and in chambers tonight, and thank you all for being here. So Tonight's topic is the Riverbend Conservation Area. So for folks who are just joining us for the first time, we have these bi-weekly focus group meetings where we're hoping to hear from stakeholders, on the specific areas and themes or properties that will be kind of a particular focus of the plan. So we've touched on sports and recreation programs and facilities, school recreation facilities. Last week was Schmidt Farm, which was a great conversation. We have Riverbend tonight, and then upcoming are Maple Hill and Delcart. So, Brika, you want to dive in on Riverbend?
Sure. So this meeting is a little different than prior ones. Prior ones, we always had a presentation prepared. But since Riverbend is more or less established, but also really just utilized as trails at the moment, I don't have a presentation prepared. I just have the map with the trail system. So you can actually find this map. It's interactive. It's also on our conservation webpage. So if you were to go to the open space left-hand, thank you, Tyler. It's good to show people. So 2023 Open Space and Rec Plan Update, Open Space and Recreation Areas, and you will actually see an exhaustive list of all of the open space and recreation areas in Franklin. And then on the left-hand side, you can toggle between different areas. And then if they have trails, all the trails will be mapped. If they have other amenities, those will be mapped as well. Awesome job, Tyler. So then this is Riverbend. So with that, I presume that most people that are here know what Riverbend is or have at least, visited there and have ideas. So I would open it up to comment right away.
Yeah, no, that would be great. So if anyone in chambers on Zoom would like to comment or ask a question or give your input on Riverbend and how, and again, the goal for these is to, set a framework for how can we better utilize open spaces, how can we make them more accessible, how can we make them more interconnected, depending on the spaces and the circumstances. And so any and all ideas, thoughts, comments are very much welcome.
Go for
Please,
it.
go for it.
All of you.
So am I?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, my name is Jake Berry, Franklin resident of Brandywine Road. I've used this particular area for years. Just hiking, it's a wonderful area as far as river access, which is pretty rare in Franklin to have access to the river. A couple comments on it. One, I think there's a tremendous opportunity with open parcels that are around this to add on to this parcel, all the way over to Shaw Street, which would be fabulous. Couple things that I see for improvement in this area. One, there is illegal ATV access in this area. It's been going on for years. It's very clear that it's coming from one property over on Amy's Way. I don't know how to deal with it or stop it. Certainly open to ideas and happy to contribute to those. The other issue in this area is, one, a lot of the trails have been built over time by ATVs. And there's a serious, design issue with the trails that leads to flooding and mud on the trails that is just getting worse and degrading the trails over time. A lot of the main trails, including the access in from the parking lot, could really use a redesign or some water rerouting or just ways to propagate the water off the trails. More of the trails down towards the river that have been designed for hiking are less prone to that, and have obviously been designed with water mitigation in mind. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Jake.
So I'm a previous consultant for NGrid and Eversource, and ATV use is not allowed under the row for obvious safety reasons. But if you do see that, so that's out of my jurisdiction for what I can do because it's under a row, but you can always call them. So they're pretty responsive and pretty receptive to that. It's hard to police, but for example, the row by YMCA, I actually, within my first month of working here, I got hit by a dirt biker. No fault of his own, of course, but they installed gates. Obviously not something we can do at Riverbend since it's open access, but they are responsive, so I would suggest you call them. But thank you for letting me know all the same. Anybody on Zoom? Okay. Well, I can, oh, well, good.
Steve, question? Feel free to unmute yourself.
Yeah, unmuted, I think. Can you hear me?
Yep.
We can hear you.
I can hear the echo. Just a clarification first. Breck, you mentioned an acronym. Could you spell it out? What was the organization that's controlling that?
Oh, you're right. So I said I previously worked for Eversource and NGrid, it's a National Grid. I believe that's an Eversource row, so that's right of way, ROW.
Okay. I
Sorry,
wasn't sure
Steve.
how to reference that. No, and then the second part, I'll second the prior commenter. There's a number of folks who, at least from a senior center, tend to be part of a walking group, and they visited there frequently. They tend to avoid it from time to time because of the water. It tends to impede on the trail, however it's caused. So if it's truly wetlands and that prone to water, then at some point in time, and obviously it would take some money, but some sort of, planking, boarding, et cetera, to protect both the wetland and allow for access. It would also allow for better handicap access if it's that wet as well, I would think, so.
Nice, Steve.
And I was
You're
over there
welcome.
this morning, Steve, and I can echo, it is quite wet and muddy on the trails right now, so.
Yeah, embarrassingly, that's one place I just haven't been yet. It's on my list of things to do, but I haven't been there yet.
It was very peaceful this morning. Highly
I can
recommend.
imagine.
Go for it, Tyler. You want to read it out?
So we don't have a name for the comments. But it says that Riverbend is a great piece of land. Would love to see more access down to the river somehow. Also, if the town would ever be willing to look at sidewalks in that area so local people can walk and not use the limited parking, that would be amazing. Good comments.
Okay. Kobe, do you want to have a comment? Feel free to jump in.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Kobe Frangilla, 140 Maple. Riverbend, I give it 2 superlatives. It's both our most underappreciated assets and possibly related our worst marked trail network. We finally got a sign on the road to at least indicate it was there, which is fantastic, and kudos to the town for doing that. But yeah, every single time I go, including with people who hike frequently, we have a very difficult time trying to follow the intended marked path. And so I think every trail in Franklin needs a little work in terms of marking, but particularly Riverbend. The other 2 comments have already been said. Water issues are certainly a problem, and then there are opportunities to potentially extend the trail network through some open space resources if people are potentially willing to sell. So we should keep an eye on particularly the Delia property, which extends our ability to have a trail along the river. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Kobe.
Thanks, Kobe.
So I just, as an update, many folks I'm sure know that we recently did the forest stewardship plan at Delcart. So this week I actually looked at Riverbend and already called Mike Downey at DCR to see if we could get a forest stewardship plan in place on Riverbend, which will also help with a lot of grant funding for those trail networks, will help with boundary markers, will help with signage, things of that nature. So that's definitely something that I'm ruminating on, and I actually met with Ryan Jetty about it because he was really jazzed about forest stewardship plans. So,
Yeah.
So that's something that I definitely hear quite a bit. And I also had thought how cool it would be to have some sort of signage. So we actually have 4 tribes that call Franklin home, and to try and connect with them to get their historic utilization of the Charles. and then to do some signage and nice, homage to historical practices on the trails. I think there's a really great history component there.
Yeah, I think that's a really good opportunity too.
Yeah, those are my comments. Anybody else?
I would just add for my part, I think two things, and signage is kind of tied into one of these. I think it's not necessarily apparent from the road that there's parking if you go in.
Yeah.
And so I think, folks who drive by it and who, want to stop there might not know that there is parking if you go down that gravel drive. So maybe some sort of signage indicating parking is out there. And the other, I think, is a little more challenging. I think in addition to being pretty wet, the trails do get steep going down to the river. And, that's obviously a feature of the land. But, I think, certainly anyone who has accessibility needs, but, even kids and I think could have a really hard time just getting down to the river. So I don't know if there are ways that can, kind of tactics for
Rails. Yeah.
mitigating the kind of steep slopes, because I think getting down to the river is a really neat spot there, but to do that, it's a pretty steep incline.
Yeah, we could look at like some wooden rails. That would be nice, or even building in steps. So not truly excavating, but putting something in there so it's a little bit easier to go down. Ryan, Jetty, and I were talking about that this week for Delcart for accessibility issues. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a good idea. Go for it, Tyler.
All right, so Allie has commented that she's never been to the River Bends area, but she's watched a YouTube video tour. She does not have, she doesn't have any accessibility feedback because it's not a location that's fit for someone with mobility needs, and that's okay.
Yep. So Ally, there is opportunity if the town were to acquire adjacent parcels that we could have a top of the slope sort of trail network. So that's something that's been discussed and something that's hopefully in the future, but not on the table at the moment. But we're hopeful, so keep coming to meetings. Anything else? No.
Do you know, just since we have some time, the comment came up earlier on extending sidewalks, and right now the sidewalks don't really go much further than Elm, maybe, and Daniel Street, maybe another couple houses. But do you know if there's any kind of project in the pipeline or funding
Not
to?
that I've heard, no. I think most of it is going on Grove Street right now, and towards the SNET. I know you picked up my plug for extended parking, so that's something that I know is in the works. I haven't heard anything on Lincoln, but Brooke will be here, so later, so I'm
Okay.
absolutely comfortable asking.
Yeah, might be worth looking into, because, depending on how far you could extend the sidewalk, and this gets beyond Riverbend, but, if you could, bridge it into, up into Medway, I think, there's a lot of kind of walkability options that might get opened up there, so that's a more ambitious thing than just extending it to Riverbend.
That's a good idea. I'd probably be more apt to walk it, so if that's a sidewalk, then not.
Yeah. And people drive fast on that road, so
Yes,
it's a tough road to,
I am
just be
probably
walking.
one of them, so.
Steve, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, since we've got some time, I'll second that motion on the sidewalks. There are a number of roads, that one certainly being a key, where they are fairly narrow, so it is rather dangerous for an individual, whether walking or running, and I've run many of those roads, to be safe or considered safe, and to try and provide both the accessibility as the safety aspects and access to our facilities, I think would be key. And yeah, through this process, ultimately to the plan, to the master plan, by all means, that's where I will continue to help. I do a lot of, and it's a slight plug, but I do a lot of walking, reporting by walking around. And there are some places that I'm much more comfortable walking, particularly in daytime, even in night. And during some spots, some specifically at nighttime, I will not venture forth. So the other piece I'll put in the plug while we've got some time, certainly thanks to you and the entire Conservation Commission of which there's only a few there present today, but that's okay. I understand life is challenging to be present all the time, all of these. Kudos as well to Breck Alive for doing what she's doing. I'll also put in a plug. We've done a couple of audio things with her separately around her intro to Franklin and then her role in conservation agent. We also did one that was absolutely fascinating on making sense of climate. And from a climate perspective, her analysis of the water cycle and its importance to Franklin is a must listen as far as I'm concerned. So I'll just put that plug in. You can find it very easily on any podcast app, search for Franklin Matters. I know she's posted it to her LinkedIn page. It's certainly on Franklin Matters. It's a worthy listen.
Thanks, Steve.
I'll second that.
Making me blush. Okay. So I know, Mark, you had a question in the chat about wetlands in Daisy. I'm doing some desktop review right now. It'd actually be easier if you could do it on your laptop for me. If the Wi-Fi wanted to cooperate. But to keep the conversation rolling, I actually had a question for residents here on Zoom listening in. What would your access to the Charles be? What do you define that as? So it's a very broad topic, and I think it's great, but would it be viewing? Would it be wildlife viewing? Would it be canoeing? Would it be kayaking? What is access to the Charles to you? So that's, and then I'm actually going to move to you, Tyler, so I can look at this.
I'll take a shot at that.
Yeah.
Sorry. So, as I previously mentioned, I think, Riverbend is one of our only shots at public access to the Charles in town. When I want to access the river for on water, I go to Norfolk. And, there's two reasons for that. One, it's easy access. You can dump your kayak or canoe in right there, whether you go to Populatic or you go down the river a little. I think also here, we're dealing with a dam on the river, which really limits how much we can use there, and I don't know if there's any talk ever about removing that dam. I know the state has been actively removing them in some places where they're not needed. But it would be great to have access in Franklin to have on-water sports, whether that's canoeing, kayaking, even fishing. There is fishing, and I do see people fishing in Riverbend if they can, like you said, make it down that steep trail. Which could be redesigned. You could take that trail out and just make a switchback there, which would make it much easier for, of course, not people with mobility issues, but for other people to safely access and get down to the river.
Right.
Continue.
No, I was just going to add too, and I think, some of what this plan is probably going to yield in terms of recommendations is, we might not have a resource that we can really tap into in Franklin. And so, maybe the answer to that is trying to make folks more aware of where they can access the Charles, even if it's not in Franklin. And I think there's still value to that. But I think it's definitely worth, investigating as much as we can. The dams is above our pay grade, but no, I was a former rower on the Charles, different part of the Charles, but big proponent of seeing if we can get more access.
Actually, sorry, one addendum to the dams. Since we are in the Charles River watershed, Association. I'm the liaison for that with the town, so it is something, but that's a lot of funding, a lot of grant money, because it would inevitably come from a grant, and a lot of permitting and PR work. Yeah. Well more than I get paid. That's for sure. So we have comments for access for kayaking or canoeing. Access for kayaking would be great. I would love to fish there, even just sit on a bench and view it. It's a great alley. And then to circle back to Daisy Field, I actually pulled up on our screen how wet it actually is. So it might be a little bit hard, but the blue polygons, the blue shapes are actual wetlands. The red hashing, red-orange hashing is the 100-foot buffer zone. And then obviously the blue lines, squiggly lines are streams or rivers, and then the green polygons are the 200-foot riverfront area. So it's very feasible to have a trail network in there. There would be some minor stream crossings since we can't actually go all the way around those wetland complexes. Yep. So Tyler, you're actually perfect, right where I was going to talk about. So the two wetlands, the big blue polygon kind of at the top to the north, and then this isolated blue polygon down, right? Perfect, Tyler. So there's actually intermittent streams that connect those and then drain off site. So we'd have to have some sort of stream crossing. However, we can definitely at least make partial trails throughout there, do singular loops down in that southwest corner or something like that. And if there's need for that, that's something I'd absolutely talk to Ryan about. I have no problem with that. I'm sure he'd love that too. So, anyways.
Steve, did I see you had a comment, or are you all set?
Oops. I think Breckelite covered it because the Charles River Water Association had prior meetings looking for Franklin resident input to the removal of that dam. I don't know that there are future meetings, but if there are, I'll certainly share those out through Franklin Matters. But if the gentleman wants, certainly go to the Charles River Watershed Association and sign up to their alerts. And they do have a number of dam removal proposals in the works, and as Breckelai mentions, they're complicated, they're going to take time, but there are efforts underway, and at least from what I understood from the first one, there were more naysayers, people who were fearful of the removal of the dam than folks looking for the possible improvement.
Yeah. A lot of PR.
It's very complicated.
Yes, very complicated from a permitting standpoint. So.
Well, unless anyone has any other comments, I think we can wrap up this conversation and give everyone a half hour back in their evenings. But
We'll still be here.
we'll still be here.
Yeah, we'll still be here.
And if you do have any other comments that you think of after after this wraps up, you're able to again go through the conservation website. You can provide comments through again franklinma.gov/conservation. Click on the open space plan. You're welcome to provide comments in writing through the form on our website. And again, please do respond to the survey, and that will be very helpful as we go through and try and incorporate all of this feedback. But thanks very much, everyone, for joining us tonight.
Thanks.
And then you have office hours tomorrow, don't you?
That's true.
Yes, Steve, we do. At 10 to 11 in room 326A, we have office hours following each open space Thursday night meeting. Same topic. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
That I like to use that's been translated into English, makes it easier, speeds my reading up. But I've also got Hebrew text that I can find of sort of